everybody, it's Lon Simon, and I picked up the NVIDIA SHIELD Tablet right when it came out because I know a lot of you were going to be interested in it, and this is it here. On the surface, it doesn't feel all that much different than many other kind of middle-of-the-road Android tablets. It feels actually very similar to that HP tablet we looked at a couple of days ago. In fact, the materials feel almost identical, mainly because they're both kind of these NVIDIA reference designs. But under the hood, this has some serious gaming horsepower. I'm going to show you some examples of that in a minute or two, but let's look at the hardware first and kind of get a feel for it. It's got a very nice display. This is a 1920 by 1200 multi-touch HD display. It feels really nice and responsive. Definitely a lot better than that HP tablet I used last week. The typing feels more natural. The response time on the screen feels really nice. The sound out of the speakers on the front here also sounds really nice. Very good. Actually, it sounds better than the HP device that has Beats on the front of it. So really, really nice there. You've got the camera here for conducting your video conferencing calls. On the side, over here, I think these are mounting brackets for, they have a cover that you can buy for it to kind of complete the set. And there's also a game controller that you can buy as well, which I did not get, but I am happy to report that it'll work with non-NVIDIA game controllers also. On this side, you've got the standby button, volume up and down, an SD card slot that is really hard to work with because not only do you have to get this little door open, you've got to really push the card in pretty deep to get it to click in. And I had to use like a little lightning cable from my iPad to kind of push the card in. I was not happy with that. It has a stylus here as well with some really cool stylus apps built in, which I will show you in a few minutes there too. The bread and butter of this machine is its internal processor. It's a Tegra K1. It's one of their newest processors. It's running their Kepler system, which is similar to what a lot of PC hardware uses now. It has 192 cores. I don't know what that means for a gaming device. It seems like a lot of cores to me, but I think that's going to work out pretty well. And you'll see in some of these benchmarks just how well the device does perform. This particular model has a 16 gigabytes of built-in flash storage. There's a Wi-Fi and 4G LTE version that's coming out that will have a 32 gigabyte internal flash RAM. And then it's got 2 gigabytes of RAM for running its applications. So this is very much ready for gaming, and I think, as you'll see, this probably, horsepower-wise, at least as far as how the graphics look on some of the things that I took a look at tonight, this is probably on par with like an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3. I'm not sure if it's quite up to Xbox One or PS4, but definitely in the prior console generation, I think this will be able to keep up quite well. And they offer you some really cool options for connecting it to your television too. So let's take a look at some benchmarks. Now, my favorite benchmark to run on Android devices is this one from 3D Mark. It just really pushes the hardware to its absolute limits, and it runs like butter on here. It is just beautiful. Now, it runs very nicely on the Tegra 4 hardware also, but they have another test that actually looks to see what the raw output capabilities are of the graphic chips and the processors on board. And this scored 30,271 on the 3D Mark score. The Tegra 4, by comparison, 16,081. So it's almost twice as fast. It's also twice as fast as the iPad Air, which only scored 15,141. So from the 3D Mark benchmark perspective here, this is some serious horsepower. For some frame rate tests also, they have this frame rate test where it's not limited by the display. So again, it tries to pump as much data through the processors as it can. It was able to render 209 frames per second in one of its graphic tests. The second test that it runs, which is a little bit more strenuous, 120 frames per second. That's in comparison to the Tegra 4 at about 90 frames per second for that first test and only 60 on the second. Even on the physics test, it scores about 64.8 frames per second compared to the Tegra 4's 45.9. The iPad Air can only do 27 frames per second on that same physics test. So this has some power, and I think we're going to see some really cool stuff coming out of it. Let's take a look at a few games. Now, a viewer Illuminated wrote in and he wanted me to test the emulation performance of these devices. And when you're getting to this speed, we're looking at Dreamcast and up. So we're running the Dreamcast ReiCast emulator right now. As you can see, pretty much the same scene. We're getting double the frame rate out of the Shield than we were out of a Tegra 4-based tablet. And I think that's pretty remarkable. As more things come on the screen, the Shield is able to keep up much better. One thing I was not able to get running, however, was the Dolphin emulator. It doesn't run at all on the Tegra 4. 4, and it barely runs on the Shield. So I think we've got a little bit more to go before GameCube and Wii will be running on these tablets, but we're getting there, and I think that might just be more of a software thing than anything else. So pretty impressive. So let's take a look at a few other games. Now before we load our next game, we're going to connect the HDMI cable so you can see what happens when it goes into console mode, which I think is pretty cool. So we're going to connect this cable here, and what will happen is, let me get the tablet booted back up here. We're going to unlock it. It's going to say, hey, you attached a HDMI cable. Do you want to go into console mode? Now what happens is you can choose between mirror mode, which basically just does what any Android tablet will do, which is push the display that's on the screen over to the external display and kind of mirror the two. Or what you can do is shut down the internal display and then just toss everything at 1080p to the television. And I think that actually will give you better performance because it is turning off this display, which is 1920 by 1200, and basically giving you a lower resolution display on your TV. So we're going to hit that button there, and what will happen next is you get this little icon that pops up looking for a controller. It's basically the loading icon for this console mode, and it does take a while to load. I'm surprised it takes as long as it does, given how powerful this system is. And it's also a little flaky when you go out of console mode by pulling the cable out. It doesn't really cooperate all that well. So they need to work on that part a little bit. So, but here we are in console mode, and basically it works kind of like the Ouya does to some extent, that you have a custom menu designed for a big screen, and you can load up games that you have purchased through the Google Play Store. And NVIDIA kind of keeps track of what supports their hardware. So you can basically go from this screen, buy the game on the Google Play Store, and then it'll pop back over to this screen. So we're going to launch Trine 2, and this comes on I think it comes on the tablet as a freebie, so it's kind of a pack-in game. And this is a game that was designed specifically for the new Shield hardware, and it's beautiful. I mean, the colors are really nice, the 3D graphics here. I mean, it's a 2D game, but it's obviously rendered in 3D. The graphics are really beautiful. So I would definitely put this on par with something like a Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3 game. I mean, this is console quality here. Really, really nice. It's making use of everything that this processor can do. There really, though, isn't all that much designed specifically for this. I think at the time I'm recording this video, this is pretty much the day after the Tegra Shield Tablet came out. I think we're looking at maybe 5 or 6 games that are specifically designed for this, but I think others will come out in due course. Now, what's interesting, again, is that you can place it into this console mode and essentially turn it into a game console that is running on the tablet. Now, the problem, though, is that it's really hard to get out of these games and go back to either their menu or just to pull the plug and get back to using it as a tablet. So what will happen is that if I hit the center controller button here, it puts me back out to this Google desktop. I don't get the actual menu system that I was in before, which is very confusing. And I don't know if it's because I'm not using a NVIDIA controller. I'm using this Nico controller, but it's very difficult to get out of this console mode and get back to using it as a tablet. So there might be some specific things that require that NVIDIA controller to really make work properly. So my friend and viewer Jason Perrier wanted me to check out Batman Arkham Origins, which is a little fighting game here featuring Batman. As you can see, it runs very smoothly here. Now, I'm running this now in mirror mode, where we're basically dumping the output of the display over HDMI, and you'll see that the aspect ratio is a little bit messed up here, and that's because when you switch it into that console mode, it actually goes into 1080p so that it'll format properly on your television screen. So that's one reason why you probably want to select that mode if you want to really get the right effect on your television. And it's actually nice that this does this, because I've seen a lot of these Android devices just not know what to do when they're plugged into a television, or not really focus on gaming all that well. And this one really does. Now, it also has a stylus on board that actually feels a lot like a paintbrush. It has kind of a little give to it as you're drawing on board, but you can also use the end here as kind of like a fine point as well. And what's cool is that once you apply the pen to the surface, it'll ignore your hand, so you can draw on it but while resting your hand on the screen. And what's even cooler is that the paper that you're drawing on, the virtual paper, has like a density to it and an absorption level, and it will actually go on as wet paint, and then the virtual paper will suck in and absorb the ink, and it'll get a different look after a little bit of time. So really cool that they've come up with this drawing app, and again, using that processing power that they have available to them. That's our first look review of the NVIDIA SHIELD Tablet. It is a very powerful gaming device that I think at the moment doesn't have much that can make use of what it's got available. But I'm sure that as time goes on, we're going to see some really cool stuff coming out for this in the very near future. I mean, this, at least from the benchmarks that I ran, blows away the iPad. It blows away the Tegra 4 processors that are on a lot of stuff that's just coming out now. So I think NVIDIA is really trying to push the envelope further and really release this reference kind of hardware to get manufacturers moving on making their own hardware that supports the same chips, because I think they're trying to gain some control of the marketplace, especially as it relates to mobile gaming. But without question, this is probably the most powerful mobile device for gaming that I have seen, and I'm sure in 6 months we'll see something even more powerful, but right now that's where we're at. Really impressive device, and I think we're going to have some fun with it. Just want to say on a personal note, if I sound a little subdued today, my dog, who I had in my life for 17 years, passed away today, and it was a really sad day for our family, but it was something that we knew was going to come pretty soon given her age. But it was a pretty sad day for us, but I really appreciate everyone understanding, and thanks for watching. And we'll continue doing more with this, because I know a lot of you had some additional questions about things that that I should try running on the tablet, and I didn't get to all of them because I wanted to kind of get a good, concise review up initially, but I will keep playing with it. If there's things that really stand out that work much better on this than they would on a Tegra 4 machine, I will certainly let you know. This is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.